Hey, Chris here from CriticalOutcast.com with another episode of the CritCast. This week I take a look at the Hudson Horror Show, which happened this past weekend. And I have to tell you right up front now that if you're a fan of horror, this is the place you really need to go. You need to make a point of getting out to one of these shows. These marathons are fantastic. 5 movies all day, surrounded by horror fans. And frankly, it's something you shouldn't miss. I mean, it's a whole day thing, and it's great, you know. The Hudson Horror Show. It's held at the Silver Cinema in Poughkeepsie, New York. Typically screen 5 or 6 movies. Mostly horror stuff, although they will stray into some like exploitation fare. The movie selection is fantastic. I mean, if you like horror, you like this sort of thing, you gotta be there. Some of the films they've shown in the past have included Evil Dead, both 1 and 2, Cannibal Holocaust, Alligator, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Rolling Thunder, Gates of Hell, The Beyond, Zombie, The Bird with the Crystal Plumage. It's just some fantastic stuff. Along with these, we get trailers before and after. There's giveaways, trivia contests. There's vendors there selling, DVDs and toys and zombie coloring books, and it's just a great place to to get together and hang out and watch the movies with a lot of people who like the same sort of thing. This is episode, which was the fifth one so far over the past 3 years. Started off with the Kung Fu horror Legend of the Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires. It's a collaboration between Hammer and Shaw Brothers. Classic collaboration of Eastern studio meets the Western studio, creating this mashup of that Hammer gothic feel mixed with the Kung Fu of the Shaw Brothers studios. This cut is actually different from the one that I saw years ago. Most of the international cut that I've seen runs 83 minutes. This ran somewhere between 70 and 75 minutes. And it also has a different title. This one is called The Seven Brothers Meet Dracula. And frankly, it's pretty nonsensical. I mean, it's a lot of fun, but half the movie I had no idea what the hell was going on. There's actually a pretty long stretch, probably about a half hour or so, where there wasn't even any dialogue. I don't know, it's one of those things that seeing it with a crowd is just a lot of fun, because there's some really goofy stuff in it. You can see some wires as bats fly around, and there's the pseudo-hopping, skipping vampire, the undead minions of the 7 vampires. I don't know if you're familiar with, but like Japanese or Hong Kong vampires, they don't walk, they hop. And it sounds funny, but you should really check out something like Vampire vs. Vampire or Mr. Vampire. Those films are really quite good, and they give you a better idea of their interpretation of the vampire story. But in this, since you have that combination, they didn't really go all out with the hopping vampires. So they have this like hopping, skipping shamble, which is actually pretty hilarious. But it's a lot of fun. Peter Cushing is in it. It doesn't really make a lot of sense, but it's one of those things you need to see. I'd probably be more apt to recommend the DVD version for that full length cut for it to make a little more sense. But seeing this cut with a crowd of horror fans was probably a bit even more fun because the cuts and edits were that much crazier. The second feature they showed is one that I actually haven't heard of before, never seen it, wasn't even heard of it until they announced it. It's not a horror film. It's actually a 70s era exploitation film called Massacre, Mafia Style. It's kind of like these guys watched The Godfather and decided, hey, we can do this, and decided to make their own movie. And really, it's insane. It's about these guys. They come to America after his father was kicked out and sent back to Sicily. He watched his father about how to run the family business, so he decides to come back to get revenge and sort of follow in his dad's footsteps and take over the business in America. And this turns into this string of people getting shot in between Italian songs. The dialogue is crazy. The shootouts are hilarious. And, it's just one of those movies that you really need to see to believe. I've never seen anything quite like it before, and frankly, I'm really glad that I got the opportunity to see it on the big screen. The crowd was just laughing their asses off. I mean, it was hilarious. I mean, it was fantastic. it's not one of those Godfather or Oscar type films, but who really wants those when you're watching exploitation fare. It's definitely one to check it if you get a chance. Frankly, I don't think there's much of a chance of getting a DVD release, of an official DVD release anytime soon. Although I know Grindhouse Releasing has been working on it, but I know there have been some legal issues. But if you get a chance to see it, definitely check it out. And it's a lot of fun on the big screen with a lot of fans. Moving quite right along here, the third film is probably one that everyone knows. It's George Romero's Day of the Dead. Not that crappy remake from 5 or 6 years ago, but the real deal from 1985. I remember back when I was first getting into watching zombie films and horror films in general, there was a lot of people that, for one reason or another, didn't like this movie. And I bought into it for a while. Not because I believed it, it's just, no one else seemed to like it, so why should I? But really, I'm glad I got over that. Because really, it's quite a good film. There's some really good zombie action, there's some great gore effects. And it's actually a pretty interesting character study of how these people react after all this isolation, being stuck down this military base, and how it affects your perceptions and how you interact with the people around you. But beyond that, it's just a lot of fun. Zombies going around ripping people apart. You got Bub, who's learning. You can relearn some of the skills, and he's remembering what it was like when he was still alive. And it's a really interesting continuation of the series. That started with Night of the Living Dead and, of course, The Great Dawn of the Dead. And again, seeing this on the big screen, the colors were vibrant. It was a really nice looking print. If you get the opportunity, you definitely should get out there and check that out. The fourth film is a movie that I like parts of. I like bits and pieces and things about it, but I can never really consider it one of my favorites. And that movie is Phantasm. Angus Scrimm is fantastic as the bad guy, the tall man. He has this presence on the screen that is really menacing, really creepy. The main theme from the score is really one of the best themes in horror, and when that kicks in, it really helps amp up the tension and the atmosphere of the film. Although I do think that there are too many stretches where there's pretty much no sound at all. I don't know. I found it kind of made it feel really kind of slow and drag a little bit. Still, it's a classic for a reason, and while it might not be my favorite, it is really a good film. It has a very Dario Argento European kind of feel to it in the way the pacing is, the way it has this very this dreamlike quality to it. There's this nightmare, come to life that they're dealing with. And how can you not like Reggie Bannister with his skullet and his ice cream truck and acoustic guitar? That guy is great, Continuing along, the final film, the main event of the night, was the original uncut Friday the 13th. This is a film that I know all you horror buffs have seen. Even some of you guys who aren't into horror have probably seen this movie. It's the big one. It's one of those. It's not quite Halloween in terms of that granddaddy of slasher films, but it's up there. And after reading some of at least a little bit of Camp Crystal Lake memories. About the making of the film, I have a new respect for what they were doing. They had no idea what they were doing. They were just trying to get a movie made, to keep their company afloat. And they inadvertently made this slasher classic that spawned all these sequels and just created a horror icon without even having that icon in the movie. I know, but at this time of the night, I was starting to wear down a little bit. My eyes threatened to close a couple of times, but I didn't really miss anything. But it was fun seeing this on the theater in the big screen, and much respect to the guys that run the Hudson Horror Show: Chris Allo, Tad, Marcos, Dan, Glenn, Errol, all those guys that work on putting the show together for us. It's fantastic, and if you're a horror fan, you really should get out there and see it. Backtracking a little bit, in between these films, we get a lot of trailers. This one, actually, we got these two big blocks of Charles Bronson trailers. And while I will admit that I was getting a little bit Bronsoned out by the end of that, it was fun seeing a lot of these trailers together. In particular, the Five Death Wish films, watching their trailers back to back, and just seeing how quite ridiculous that series got, especially around I think it was part 3, that looked like it had like a railgun. as opposed to, the snub nose that he was using in the first two films. There's some other great trailers, some horror stuff, some exploitation stuff, movies I'd like to see in one of the future horror films, Horror Fest. But anyway, it's great seeing these trailers, because really they don't make trailers like this anymore. They're weird, they're violent, they have these crazy voiceovers. It's really it's a blast from the past seeing these things. The Hudson Horror Show. I mean, I really can't say enough good things about this. Every time I go, I see a lot of the same faces. I've made a lot of friends, with a lot of these people. Chris again, and Ted, and all the guys that run the show, as well as some of the other guys that run the show, like who come to the show, like Christy from Fright Rags. There was a guy from Synapse Films was there. Mike Ingold from Fangoria, and there's lots of other familiar faces that I don't really know them to be friends with, but knowing them, to say hi to them, and just knowing that there's a lot of people there that are all there for the same reason that you are. It's fun. It's different than any other film going experience I have. I know it's fun going to movies with friends, but this is something different. I mean, you're in a sold out theater of your friends. Everyone's there for the same reason. Everyone loves these films, and it's just the energy is just off the charts. And if you can make it happen, if you like these sort of things, if you have the stamina to last a full day, good 12 hours of horror movies and trailers, and surviving on a bag of popcorn for an entire day, you really owe it to yourself to get yourself a ticket and get out to the next Hudson Horror Show, which is going to be held again at the Silver Cinemas in Poughkeepsie, New York, on December 1st, 2012 this year. There's going to be 6 films. Hudson Horror Show 666 is being called. It's the 6th edition. They have announced 3 of the films so far. Conan the Barbarian, which I know is not a horror film, but it's right in line with a lot of the genre fare that we like, and it's based off a reaction to at Hudson Horror Show 4. There was a big block of Schwarzenegger trailers, and man, those were a blast. And based off of that, they kind of got the idea that this might be a good one to show. And I know Chris is a big fan of Conan, and I think that's going to be fun to see on the big screen. Another one they're going to have is one I actually haven't seen. It's from 1975, called The Devil's Reign, starring William Shatner, and that movie looks crazy based on from the few clips that I saw. And the third of the 6 films that they've announced is the Jeffrey Combs classic Reanimator, and that's going to be great, because I had heard that was a tough one to get fine prints of. Well, they did it, and we're going to see it come December. So make sure you visit them, HudsonHorror.com, or look them up on Facebook, because I'm pretty sure the tickets will be going on sale pretty soon, if not already. And I hope to see you there. In the meantime, make sure you visit me over at CriticalOutcast.com, and where you can see more full-length reviews and other such nonsense from yours truly. Until then, I'll see you later.